it was, what day was it? It was reading club. We've got a reading club now, as well as a writing club, and we've just decided on the name. It's called Reading Between the Wines. We all find absolutely hilarious.
Yes, clearly.
Yeah, don't force it.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Morning. Apologies again.
Okay. Again?
Well, yes. I've second time in a month or so, isn't it, that I've been late?
Do you know the joke? What's the definition of a split second?
No.
It's that moment between the lights turning green and the taxi behind you honking its horn. And another one is, it's that moment between 09:30 and Judith sending you a PM to say, where the fuck are you?
Yeah, I've got lovely landlords and landladies. They're very helpful, but everyone here has got a very elastic concept of time.
Yeah. And I was sitting here thinking, well, one day I'll live in a place where there's an elastic concept of time.
Yeah. I said, you can come before 11:30. They're coming to Strim and to take away the fridge. I said, these are the options: before 11:30 and after 2:00. And of course they arrive at 9:25. So it's like,
well, you did send me a very funny message. Sorry, coming now. Sorry, landlord arrived with strimmer to move spare fridge.
I know.
And I thought, you don't really need a strimmer to move a fridge.
No.
But anyway, let me shut that down and focus on us.
Noisy that is. Big wins here, Judith, last night. Enormous wins.
Yes,
we get
I saw.
2 or 3 times a year. It woke me up at 3:00 and it was like howling around the mountains and howling around the houses. And it doesn't do anything unless obviously you've got anything loose. But my friend Linda's had a glass-topped balcony table overturned by it.
Drama.
Yeah.
And last weekend we had our second Snowmageddon, and we had big wind with our Snowmageddon as well.
Oh, that must have been very wind chill factor -15.
Well, scary, actually. Scary. If you go over a bridge or lorries are throwing themselves at you on motorways, all a bit scary. Yeah.
You didn't go out, though, did you?
I did, yes, I had to, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But you know the thing when the wind snatches the steering wheel out of your hand? Do you know that?
No, I've never experienced that.
Oh, well, there you go, a bit of that.
Wow, God, scary stuff. Right, so what's your week been up to then, apart from...
Well, I've got some good... Well, there was Snowmageddon is pertinent in this first story, which is, you remember last week I had this shaggy dog story about chasing a very small quantity of foreign currency around the southeast of England. Well, since I've spoken to you, I've been to City Airport twice more.
No.
Because I went on Saturday and... You will never believe this. I should have known this. I phoned them on Friday and said, have you got my currency? Yeah, see you tomorrow. Right. And then Marion said, could you fit me in for a chat? Yeah, do you want to do it before City Airport or after City Airport? We'll do it before City Airport. So I chatted to Marion and I left here about 12:30, got to City Airport about 1:15. They shut at 12 on Saturdays.
Oh, no.
That was when that was Snowmageddon and the big wind and the steering wheel wrenched out of my hands. I've been through this life, and all the time I was thinking, oh God, we just lectured the listeners 2 weeks ago about what's an essential journey.
Yeah.
And I had to debate this. Yeah, I had to debate with myself, was this or wasn't this? And I felt it was an essential journey and I made it and it was abortive again. And then on Sunday, I was due to be going to lunch with my brother because, I thought it was an essential journey. No, I thought it was an essential journey because one of the guests was the lady that I'd spent Christmas with who'd had this awful health diagnosis. But it meant that I had to go to City Airport first, which is an hour in the wrong direction, and then an hour and a half in the other direction in the Snowmageddon. And I took with me that day, because my sister-in-law is very nervous about everything, I took with me what I call a snow pack, which was in case it started to snow later in the day and she made me stay the night. I took a nightie and a blankie and a toothbrush and contact lenses and new knickers for Monday and, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, right.
But I went up to City Airport third time, got my currency. It's in my wallet, which is marvellous. Took my snowpack round to my sister-in-law's. They were all laughing at me because, of course, the snow was quite light round there. But guess what happened in the middle of the afternoon? Snow started again. Yeah, and she let me go home, but I'm not quite sure how she let me go home, to be honest, because when world circumstances are scary, she likes all her brood under her little fluffy cheeky arms.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
She thinks that we're all safer. We're all safer if we're together. I'm not sure that's actually true.
Well, no, it's sort of it increases the likelihood of the entire Morgan clan being wiped out.
Quite, yeah. So the clan being wiped out together. Yeah, don't even say it. But anyway. So the point. One thing about my week, Nicola. Foreign currency on board.
It's on board, is it? Oh, marvellous.
Yes,
so
it is.
What happens now?
Well, that's another story for another day. But I'll tell you when the end of that story is known, which it could be within a couple of weeks. But we'll see.
Oh, lovely. Yes. Anything else this week? Or is that enough of
not in this section. No, tell me about your week.
Well, apart from the big wind, we had the 18-hour power cut earlier in the week, which was due to a big electrical storm when lightning struck the post apparently outside Gaia in Agnes Nicolaus. This is the same post that got run over by it's very unlucky, this particular post. But anyway, it went off in about 8 o'clock in the evening. I hadn't had my dinner yet, so I thought, oh, that's that. It's a dry rusk and a bit of cheese for me by candlelight. But luckily I had enough candles because my landlord and landlady had a drawer full of them. And I discovered, I went to bed to read like a lady from a Victorian drama with a 3-candle candelabra, which actually throws out quite a decent light. You're actually very much able to read by it. And so that was that. I got up next morning and thought, oh, still off, damn. So that there was hot water, but the water pumping station had been affected by the electricity. So by mid-morning, the water had gone off as well. And it was, what day was it? It was reading club. We've got a reading club now, as well as a writing club. And we've just decided on the name. It's called Reading Between the Wines. We all find absolutely hilarious.
Yes, clearly.
Yeah, don't force it.
No.
And then what else happened? Oh, yesterday we recorded 6 Own It episodes. In fact, we recorded 7 because...
No, not Own It. No, not Own It. White Club.
No, the other Right Club one, that's right. So all of us were in town and we recorded 6 episodes. We actually did 7 because one didn't record. I've got no idea why, but we had to put it to the end and go again. And it was the one where I had to read my work in progress. So, so we managed to get 7 episodes done in one day, which we were all very impressed with. Went out for dinner afterwards to celebrate. And that's my week pretty much.
Well, I've got a tiny little podcast and I read Blogfester number 24 into it twice because the first time it didn't record properly either. And it's like, oh, God. I mean, having to re-record the same content twice and that mine was literally 10 minutes and yours is an hour. It's just deadly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, luckily we, 20 minutes of our hour now is taken up with interviews. So, in the same way that you've organised us to do that, we've got an interview with a writer or an editor or a publisher or something like, or an agent or whatever. So that helped. But trying to do the same jokes again and sound spontaneous was quite hard.
Oh, I know. And speaking of that, are we going to insert our first guest in this show today?
I think we are, yes. I've got it down in my focus interview of the week. So I'll get you to tell us a bit more about him in a minute. First, let's hear what's fueled your fire.
2 things. A half a dozen very jolly and supportive responses to last week's newsletter, which I've made the focus of tomorrow's, calling it My Readers Are My Cheerleaders, which they are. That really encourages me to keep going when you get people reply. And they usually reply in a few dribs, but last week was a bit of a deluge, which was rather nice. 2, having been paid in full for my 3 new low-carb clients, although I don't start work with one of them for another fortnight yet. Loving the work we're doing together. Client number 1 had a major breakthrough on day 10 out of 90. Oh. She had the same major breakthrough that I had, although I don't think mine came so early, which is when you think, oh, I'm going to be able to do this and it's going to be easy. When you get that, it's like, have you ever been to the dogs and the rabbit comes out of the thing and the dogs get the whiff of, and then round they go. It's like that. It's the same kind of encouragement as that. And I'm loving the work because it's faster results for them than better paid for me. And I'm on a mission to change people's lives, and I always will be, but this is their health, which is even more vital than their business and their income. And I'm excited by that for the moment because, being a creator, I'll be excited by something else next month, won't I?
Yes. But you'll still be working with those people next month.
I still will. No, because I'm all in. You know me. I never take on a commitment I don't see fit to. And I hope I'll do more than 3. But I've started with 2 out of my 3, and I've been paid in full by 3, which is always a nice feeling. When you wake up to a large ka-ching, I think that's one of the best feelings of being self-employed, isn't it? When magical money just appears in your PayPal account overnight from a long distance.
Yes, it's a bit like when someone joins up for a year with Clicks and Leads Academy to save 30%. And it's, it's a significant sum of money to come in overnight when you're fast asleep. Yeah, lovely.
Yes.
Very nice. So I got inspired to do something that I'd had discussed with you previously as a 90-day challenge, but it had been lingering around in my consciousness, and I thought I'll just get the spreadsheet out in Judith. You know how we like to. I'm not known for getting the spreadsheet out, but I thought to myself, I wonder if I've got, how have I got it? I've got it all planned out. So I've got a spreadsheet where I give to my students where they get told what to do every single day for the next 90 days. And it basically, that's 3 months. And
you haven't told us what this 90-day challenge is. Sorry, darling, you haven't told us what
I do the same thing now, Judith. That's all I ever do is Be Everywhere Online program, because it works. Okay. And so I thought, I've got a 90-day spreadsheet, but it's very much do this now, do this now, do this now. And I don't know that anyone follows it at all. I mean, my goal is with most coaches is to get people in and then get them doing the thing that they've signed up for. And I thought a 30-day challenge might work. So I thought I'll just get the spreadsheet out and see if I can break down, what I teach people through, because I'm so enjoying the Michael Neal 90-day challenge. I'm really enjoying that. And I love the way it's such a tiny step every day. And I thought, I wonder if I could turn what I teach people into a tiny step every day. And then I thought, okay, so I'm going to see if I can do it on a spreadsheet. And I did. And I thought, okay, so at the end of 30 days, they'll end up with 3, possibly 4 bits of content that can be out there working on the internet for them on every platform, bringing them, leads and hopefully ideally customers. So then I thought, okay, well, let's see if I can record the first 7 videos, because if I can get a week ahead at least, then this Saturday I can do the next 7 and always be a week ahead. So I sat and recorded the first 7 videos. I thought, this is quite easy actually, I can do this. And then I thought, let's see if anyone's interested, remaining unattached to the outcome at all times. So I put it up and I put it on Facebook, on my page. I made an ad and started showing the ad to people who'd engaged with my page and my website, etc. And I've got 50 people signed up so far, so I'm really hopeful that by Monday I'll have another 50, because 100 would be lovely, wouldn't it? Because we know that. Can
you just explain to me, is it I'm confused about whether it's 90 days or 30 days now.
It's 30 days now, because 90 days I think sounds too long. And I think, I've watched other people doing 30-day challenges, and it seems like a nice short time frame. And if I can deliver, get people to the point where they've got 3 great bits of content and an ongoing template to follow thereafter, then the point of the challenge is hopefully we'll get to the end of the 30 days. Some people will have done it. Some people will have fallen behind. Some people will love it. Some people will hate it. But I might attract some clients from it who, in the academy, who want to get continued access to the videos and continued access to my support.
And you said 3 bits of content. Is that what you meant?
Yes, because in the idea is that in each week you produce a piece of content, and then in the next week it gets syndicated and spread far and wide. But the first week obviously has to be a little bit about prep. So by the end of the first week, they produce 1 bit of content. The end of the second week is the second bit of content. The end of the third week is third bit of content. And if they're really diligent, by the end of the 4th week, they will have 4 bits of content out there on the web, making working for them. So I'm really excited about it. And I think I might even do one 3 times a year.
Okay.
So
did you call it a challenge?
I did, because I like the word challenge. I write to challenges. I know you find them exhausting sounding, but so that's that. And so that fueled my fire.
Here at Own It, we personally believe that leaders are readers, but sometimes it's just not convenient to read and you'd rather listen instead. For listeners of Own It the podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. A couple of titles we've picked out for you particularly are Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg or Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ownit. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ownit for your free audiobook. You can pick one of the ones I've chosen for you, or you can choose something else. Enjoy your listen.
So tell us a bit about the lovely interview of the week that we've got lined up for everyone.
Yeah, we're going to insert Tom Evans into this guest slot today, our first guest. And it's nice because although it won't go out until the 30th of March, anybody who's being recorded on that day in April where we're doing 4 more will be able to hear how it went, because I think at least one of our guests on that day is confused about how it works, but never mind. I mean, let's tell everybody that we did 4 last week, and they went surprisingly well, didn't they?
Yes, it was a really open format, and I had no idea what people were going to turn up and talk about, but you'd organised it beautifully, of course, and I really enjoyed it. I found each of our guests really interesting. I found the topic they brought to talk about really interesting.
And at the moment, typically, we've got a sort of 75-25 ratio of women to men, but we're putting on one of the men first today. We're going to put on Tom Evans, who's a very prolific and interesting man. He was a broadcast engineer, worked at the BBC, had his own business, burnt out early, magically wrote a book, then wrote 15 more. Then and after the first book became after the first book became a book mentor. I think the most tantalising thing that he said, and I know he tried all of those, Udemy, then the Daily Om, all those platforms for cascading his content, but the breakthrough moment came from having his meditations on Insight Timer, where he's been downloaded 900,000 times, which has led to some corporate work for him to do. So he's got he's a creator, so he's got his fingers in every single pie, counterintuitively to what we say here, and he does all of it himself from home. So when he advised me about making an audio book, he's got the proper studio at home with I just do this and that and the microphone and the 2 screens and the Audacity and all of that. He's a marvellous chap, Tom. He's what do you call those people? A polymath. He's a polymath, and he's going to be our first guest of the week, isn't he?
Well, I've known about him for years, but since he did the Ermentrude book, but I've never known him properly, and it was just delightful. I really enjoyed it, so I hope everybody else does too.
So welcome, Tom, first of all, Tom Evans. Welcome to Own It, the podcast. Take 2 minutes to tell us a little bit about you before we get into your main thing.
Well, that's a great question, actually, because every time I think I know what it is I'm doing, the universe seems to have a different plan for me. I mean, about 15 years ago, I was a board IT consultant who had the classic midlife crisis or hiccup. So I wrote a book by accident called 100 Years of Ermentrude. Ended up walking around London in a bra for 26 miles as a result of it, because it mentioned breast cancer. And then people started approaching me saying, would I help them write their books? And overnight I became a published author and an author's mentor. And I thought, hey, that's it. That's me for the rest of my life. And my books, I just finished yesterday my 15th book. It's off to the publishers on Monday. And my books started popping through me. There were things I wanted to explore. Lots of them were like workbooks and manuals at first. And then I started getting a bit more philosophical and esoteric. And I started putting meditations with my books to help people not only just read about what I was trying to talk about, but experience it too. And then I got discovered about 3 years ago by this app called Insight Timer. And just in 2.5 years, I've become a really well-known meditation teacher from an international perspective. And so I've sort of transitioned from being an author who did meditations on the side to being a meditation teacher who's never been inside an ashram or actually been trained meditation formally, who happens to have books on the side. And I know that this is also transitory. I've got some more stuff coming up soon where that will start to grow and change in a new way. So that's kind of what I've been: an author, author's mentor, meditation guide in transition. And in the back of my books, it says, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
And do you know what's great about that story is you couldn't have seen that last chunk coming. Nobody could they?
No way. And also, I'm the last person in the world. I'm the biggest doubter of my work. I'm now at 900,000 downloads on the Insight Timer app, and it's taken that number of downloads for me to convince myself that my meditations are actually quite good.
Tom, I got goosebumps there because it's so wonderful to hear you say, a successful human being, I'm the biggest doubter of my work. And the two are not mutually exclusive, are they?
No, we always had that. Every time this latest book I've co-authored with somebody, and every time he sends me his version, he apologizes to me. And every time I send him my version, I apologize to him. And I think that humility kind of keeps us grounded and is really important, really.
Mm. And when we can achieve even with doubt. Now, tell us what we're going to talk about this morning.
Well, I thought as it's the Own It podcast, how about we talk about owning time?
Yes, lovely. We'll let you start, and then we'll join in when we feel the urge.
Well, what I noticed when I started the thing that kicked me into being an author is I was pretty stressed out. Just sold my second business, and both times I've been really financially successful in my life, but also been the most stressed. And someone said to me, "You look really haggard. Why don't you start to meditate?" And I thought, well, I haven't got time and I couldn't switch my busy mind off, but I persisted, and that's what led me to this place now. But I noticed lots of things that on days I meditated, I got more things done than on days that I didn't. So let's say I spent 10 minutes in the morning meditating, I got that back so easily. So it became a no-brainer to meditate every single day. If I didn't meditate, I found I was pushing water uphill. But as an engineer, I started to research the whole nature of time. I got loads of books about it. I found a great book by a guy called Ian McGilchrist called The Master and His Emissary. And it was all about the left and right brain and how the old model of the left brain being creative, logical, and the right brain creative is a bit of an urban myth. And it's more accurate to say nowadays that the left brain sits inside space and time and the right brain sits outside space and time. So they've got two different...
Going on slower.
Yes, I was going to say that slowly because that's really cool, isn't it?
Okay, so the two hemispheres of our brain have two experiences of the world. There was a guy called Professor Roger Sperry in the 1960s, and he did loads of experiments on people that had epilepsy, and he found that he could sever the corpus callosum, the butterfly structure that sort of connects both sides of the brain together. And he found he cured epilepsy. But as a side effect, he noticed that if he was to put a blindfold on one eye, let's say on the left eye, which feeds into the right brain, he could do things for the right brain, so it couldn't actually know what was going on with the right hand. So the right brain wouldn't recognize the right hand at all if the left eye was shut, and vice versa. And so they discovered that the two halves of our brain have two experiences of the world. And what I discovered through studying meditation and yoga and this sort of stuff is that if you actually get the two halves of the brain synchronized together, and this involves disabling the corpus callosum. It used to be thought that the corpus callosum allowed the two halves of the brain to communicate, but a better model is that it actually inhibits one half while the other can get on with it. So we're always flipping between left and right brain consciousness. And I found that when you get the two halves working together, you end up in this timeless flow state called the zone. So I wrote a book called The Zone. I've got a podcast called The Zone Show. And it all came from this research into what modern neuroscience knows about consciousness. And what happens nowadays is that in the old days, you used to do research on people that had some sort of trauma like a stroke. But nowadays, you can actually anesthetize a whole hemisphere of a brain or a little bit part of a brain in someone who's healthy and ask them how they feel. And you find that the latest model is that the left brain sits inside space and time and the right brain sits everywhere and everywhere else, which of course the ancient Greeks knew anyway, because they're the gods of Kronos, which is left brain, and Kairos, which is the right brain. The Kairos being the god of the heavens and Kronos being the god of the earth.
Now, just for my notes purposes, so I've written that down. Kronos is left and Kairos is right?
Kind of, yeah. And actually chronometer comes from Kronos.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who's actually living in Greece now, this is really fascinating.
There you go.
But the other thing that really fascinates me here is that you come across this time and time again that the ancient people seem to have intuitively known, or they were taught by aliens, one of the two, that things that we're only just discovering again now. I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. And I love the fact that we're going to have an amazing century when actually the sort of intuitive sciences, what the mystics and sages knew, is going to be embraced by the scientific world. I mean, I've been a student of the tarot for many years, and the major arcana of the tarot describes our consciousness. I even wrote a book about it called Flavor of Thoughts. And the minor arcana of the tarot describes the fact that we're having a 3-dimensional experience, but we're 9-dimensional beings incarnated on the Earth plane. And they didn't have the language or the MRI scanners to describe all of this sort of stuff. So they came up with a load of glyphs and pictures and stuff like that. And I've been decoding these for years. And actually, I guess the thing I'm really doing, and this has been the theme all the way through, is actually making what is known as the exoteric, so the occult and the unknown into the known and understood. And the ancients knew this stuff, but they just couldn't describe it in mathematical or physical terms.
Now, timeless flow state sounds terribly attractive, doesn't it? And you started by suggesting, how would it be if we could own time? How do those two segue?
Okay, so basically the modern day time system, it was invented so that we could turn up at the right time to have this Zoom conversation. It's really, really handy. I had an interview yesterday at 11 o'clock UK time from Australia at 10 o'clock time. So it was really good that we got this system. But seconds, minutes, weeks and months don't exist. They've been made up by us. In fact, months with equal lengths are actually a complete nonsensical thing to have anyway. And so we got this time system which we've invented, which is great for doing things like this, but also it becomes something that enslaves us when we're trying to get something done. So when we flip to a task-based concept, first off, you find out when you're most creative in the day, and I'm most creative, funnily enough, from 8:30 to 11 a.m. So having this at 11 a.m. was actually perfect for me because I was going to kind of stop anyway. It's a nice breather for me. And so you block out these times in the diary. So that time was owned by me to get the draft of this book just polished so I can send it off to the publisher on Monday. And also I allocate certain days to do certain things. So I master my time and I control what I'm going to do in those times, as opposed to being a slave to the clock. Now, obviously it helps the fact I'm self-employed and that sort of stuff, but we can all shift to this point where every point in the day we own that time and we make it task-based. Now, when you say you're going to do a certain task in a certain time, and you enter the whole brain meditative state with your eyes open, time changes. You can change the speed of time. I'm able to see through time. I can see past lives and future lives and people's auras, and I can heal the past, and I can teach people how to tap into their future selves. So time's a very malleable dimension. It's not as fixed as we think it is. And a good example of that, if you've ever driven somewhere and you've been a bit late and you just happen to get there just on time, you've experienced the subjective nature of time. So we can either be owned by time, by the ticking of the clock, bearing in mind seconds don't exist in nature, or we can own our own time.
I watched a program, there were 4 programs by Professor Cox 2 years ago. And he was talking, in fact, he demonstrated that it is physically possible to go back in time by getting into a jet that went up to the speed of sound. Like so hasn't been invented yet, and he flew backwards against the Earth's rotation, and it was mind-boggling. And some of the concepts he talked about there, again coming from the astrophysics and the physical and the scientific, really opened up my mind to the fact that there could be a lot more going on, because I've always been quite closed to this, but I'm becoming more open as science is catching up.
Yeah, and my approach to this is it's just because weird things started to happen to me. I thought, well, if they've happened, I'd then research them. I've levitated once. I did a full body levitation. And I discovered that when you stop time for yourself personally, then gravity goes to zero as well.
Oh my God. See, what's so good about this, Tom, is that you're an engineer. So, we've got to listen to you, because we don't think, oh, he's just a nutter or a flake. You're an engineer, you're a scientist, you're a researcher. And that lends so much cred to it, where otherwise we might be tempted to write off such barking.
Yeah, and this happened in such a weird environment. One is that on my podcast, I've interviewed 2 other people who have also had levitation experiences. And last weekend, I actually met the person that saw me doing it, and I said to her, I wasn't going mad. Did you? I did that weird day that we spent together when we did this sort of meditative process. It did actually happen. She said, absolutely it did. And then since then, I read a book about on quantum physics about how the time goes to zero, gravity also goes to zero as well. So But one thing I do know is that it's no point learning to levitate unless you learn how to unlevitate. Otherwise, you might have 39,000.
Yeah. So, Tom, what would be useful would be for our listener who's fascinated by the topic but thinking, yeah, I'm never going to levitate. How can we, 2 or 3 tips, small tips that any ordinary person can implement so we feel that we end up owning time or that we can access timeless flow state more readily?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing me back down to earth. Okay, really simple. This is really simple. There's loads of clocks in our bodies. Scientists don't really know that we've got clocks for. I've got a clock of our heartbeat. We've got the circadian clocks that affect how awake we are. We've got the clock of cell death and that sort of stuff. But the major clock that dictates our flow of time is the speed of the breath. And if you slow your breathing down, you will extend time. Good example of that is giant tortoises breathe 4 times a minute. They live to 150 years. An elephant breathes about 8 times a minute, lives to 80 or 90 years. Pre-industrial revolution, humans used to have about 50, 60-year life expectancy, and we breathe about 12 times every minute. All mammals have roughly the same number of breaths in their lifetime, about 450 million breaths. So if you slow your breathing down, you'll slow time down, which is kind of interesting.
And you'll live longer, won't you?
In theory, yeah. I haven't proved that one yet.
Okay.
That's still a work in progress. So. Yeah. But, you know, people who knew me from 10 years ago say, you know, I've just turned 60 last week. And they say, you look younger now than you did when I used to know you. So there's kind of a proof there. Yes. And then the other thing you do is if you meditate every morning for 10 minutes, and I'm so passionate about this, most of my meditations are free. You can get them, you can download them for free on the Insight Timer app. There's always a free meditation with no email sign up on my on the homepage of my website. Most of my meditations are 10-minute long, only because people say I've only got 10 minutes and I made them 10 minutes long. One of the biggest criticisms I got from the people on Insight Timer starting to listen to my meditations said they're a bit short. Can you make some longer ones? So I've got some longer ones too now as well. But so 10 minutes, so breathing slowly, 10 minutes of meditation every day, and then segue straight from your meditation into your creative task. Have your phones off, your social media off, all of that kind of stuff, and keep in the meditative state as you do your task. And what you do when you do that, you set up what I call an interruption barrier. Our brains are not just generators of thought, they're receivers of thought forms too. So if you think about somebody, they can pick up that you're thinking about them. And they're like, oh, so-and-so's thinking about me. I'll just put a post on social media and I'll call them. So when you still the mind, you go into this amazing flow state, but also you stop sending out thought forms that people can pick up on and think to interrupt you. And what tends to happen with me is that when I finish writing, when I finish my session in the morning, the phone rings just after it, or someone sends me an email, but I don't get interrupted during that creative space.
So you've got a separation between these optimum stillness and creative circumstances, and then when you finish it, it's almost like your energy is open to the world.
Exactly, but there's something also when I write a book, I make appointments with the chapters. The book I've just done now has got 4 parts to it, and I've just been editing it really now. And so I made 4 appointments this week with it, and I didn't let clients overbook those appointments. Yeah. And people say, how do you write all the books? Yeah. Well, I made agreements with myself to do it.
Yeah. I have to do all of that. I have to zone my diary. I have to, not let. And then that's the way to keep control, isn't it? Is letting people only book in at times through your online diary that suit you. And
exactly.
Flow state only comes for me if I zone my diary in certain days or certain types of things. And Judith, this will make you laugh. I did 10 minutes meditation this morning. And I thought, no, that wasn't satisfactory. I'm going to do another 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it, that once people get into it, they want it to be longer. They want more because they like it. Presumably, they love being in that state. Presumably. Yeah,
there's an old Buddhist phrase saying if you're too busy to do 10 minutes meditation, do an hour.
Yes, quite. Yes, and Gandhi. I've got big tasks on today. I'll do it longer. What was I going to? Nicola is a recent convert to meditation because we're both working through Michael Neill's book, Creating the Impossible. It's one of the things he recommends at the beginning. I haven't gone for it, actually, but you have made it as attractive sounding today as anybody ever.
Thank you.
Yes, and I've got the other thing is just coming, they are doing MRI scans on people who do regular meditation, and they are finding that it does change the brain's, you mentioned neuroscience earlier. I'm really interested in it, and they have found that people who meditate have got differently wired brains and different shaped brains and different stuff going on in their brains. So it does do something.
Exactly, and actually on that, I've finally broken. It's taken years. I've been knocking on the door for many years, but I've finally broken through to corporates. I've been doing loads of gigs recently. I got bookings, out for the next few months, which is great. So businesses are waking up to this. But one of the businesses I work with said, "Could you bring some evidence next time you come along? We'd like to see the evidence." So I started to research the evidence, and for every study you find that says meditation is beneficial, you'll find 1.5 studies that says no, it isn't. And the observer effect is so crucial. If the person likes it, they affect the field of the person that's being measured. Yeah. And if someone's slightly doubting about it, see, meditation, if you worry about meditation, think I'm doing it wrong or I'm not good enough, you reverse the effect, the beneficial effect.
And isn't that everybody's number one issue with it?
Well,
I'm not doing it right.
Exactly, and because I've not been in any formal training. I've just come at it from a complete left field, maverick. Let's have fun with it point of view. So I got approached last year by the technical director of a business in America who liked my meditations on Insight Timer. In fact, it was his 3-year-old son. He listened to about 40 different meditation teachers, and his 3-year-old son said, "It's that one, Daddy." Oh. And what they like about my meditations is they all started with don't drive, operate machinery, or fly a jumbo jet before listening to this. When you listen to this meditation, and it commissioned me to create 7 meditations for weight management. They work for weight loss as well as weight gain. So they work for people who've got anorexia as well as they do for people who might be overweight. And he said, "Can you put that in the beginning of everything?" I thought, "Well, I'll have a bit of fun with it." So I started off with that. But by the time you get to the one on mindful eating, I say, don't use a potato peeler or a cheese grater while listening to this meditation. And then at the end, the very end, when I say, don't operate machinery, drive. Oh no, if you're a spaceman, don't try and dock with the International Space Station or do a spacewalk while you listen to this meditation.
So they like the humour. One last question for me, and obviously we could talk for you a lot longer. To what do you attribute the breakthrough into corporates?
I think it's timing. What I tell you, 2 things. One is I've got confident now. I've got 900,000 downloads. I think there might be something good about my meditations.
Yeah.
And 2, I think they're waking up. They're getting tired of the old ways, and they want to do something else. They don't know what it is yet. There's still a lot of skepticism about it, but there's increasing acceptance too. And the smarter businesses are the people that think differently, aren't they?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, marvellous. Well, I promise that before bedtime tonight, I will download on my iPad the Insight Timer app.
Or just pop along to my website and you'll find there's a meditation called Just a Thought there, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, and I will link to both in the show notes so people can do either or both, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah.
Marvellous, marvellous. Nicola?
Thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm experiencing the benefits myself, so the deepest skeptic has become a convert.
and thank you both for sharing your time with me today.
Marvellous little insert from you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks so much to Tom for going first.
Yes, absolutely. Very brave and really interesting. I really enjoyed it. And he made me gasp a few times quietly behind my screen. Good stuff. So project updates then we're on to.
No. Words of the week.
Oh, yes. Good God, I don't have one. Yes, I do. Weather is my word of the week because I have been at its mercy. But it's not been as scary as I thought. I mean, if you told me that I'd accept with equanimity every single light in the house going off and finding my way, luckily. Oh, that was the other thing. My phone, iPad and computer were all out of battery because I run them down once a week. And, of course, that was the day. So I fumbled my way to the drawer where the matches and the candles were and managed to, I'm actually I don't like the dark at all. So I thought I was very brave that night. And then last night, the noise was unbelievable. But again, I wasn't frightened. I'm less of a scaredy cat nowadays, Judith.
I understand the logic of allowing one's computer to run down once a week. I don't think an iPad or a Kindle need that, by the way. So I would keep both of those fully charged at all times. And what you remind me of is what I've learned about hurricane behaviour in the Caribbean, which is, a torch, candles, where the matches are. You've got bottled water, you've got tinned food and long life food and things like that, so that you just go into your other mode.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I do need now, two things I need now. I need an extra charging thingy, like I can't remember, I don't know what they're called, but everyone who was walking around with one of those the other day looked very smug. And the other thing I need is a primer stove so I can heat a kettle.
I was just going to say that. You need a camping thing for being able to boil your kettle.
Yeah, cups of tea would be most welcome.
Yes.
What about you then? What's your word?
Well, I was yesterday working with a client on copy for her website, which I quite like doing. And she's a wordsmith and I'm a wordsmith. And in the course of that, I had cause to look up quite a lot of words and their meanings, because there are words where you think you know what the meaning is, but actually you need to get precise on it. And so there were quite a lot of words I had to choose from yesterday, and the one I'm going to pick is unorthodox.
Okay. Well, you're definitely that.
Well, we all are, aren't we? Us self-employed type square pegs in round holes, we're all unorthodox. Maybe some are not as unorthodox as thee and me, but we are all unorthodox, and that's a thoroughly good thing.
Good. Okay, so project updates then.
Mine's numbers. Do you want to hear my numbers?
Yeah, I've got some numbers for you as well. Go on then.
Okay. 104 books sold.
Well.
40 blog festas out of 52 published. 27 of which I've read into my little podcast, which I'm now calling Listen with Judith, which is on Audio Boom, but I like to put out the links via Radio Public because that's where I get paid for people to listen.
And I've got questions about that. Have you got a blog post on your blog that tells people how you went about doing your book? Because I was trying to refer someone to you the other day, and I thought, I don't know where specifically to send them.
Do you mean to buy the book, or how I went about writing the book?
No, they wanted to, and I thought it could become a coaching client. But I just wondered if you had a specific blog post that talks about how you went about publishing the book yourself.
If you send them to judithmorgan.com/book and they buy a copy, it talks about it quite a lot in the book.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll do that then.
Basically, I took August off and just wrote every day.
I know, but I think it's more about the fact that they're very reluctant to put it on Amazon. So I knew that you had been too, and that you
okay.
Through.
Well, I tell you what, you send them to. My first one's always free. I'll tell them that. Send them to book into my online diary. Entrepreneur of the day, judithmorgan.com. Entrepreneur -of and the one always free. They can pick my brains about that until the cows come home.
Okay, all right, we'll do. Good stuff. Well, any more numbers?
No.
Okay, good. Just checking. I've written another 1,000 words of my novel, and I had to because I had to read work in progress at one of the recordings. So there's nothing like having a deadline to make you do it. And I've discovered that what's happening is the story's percolating around in my head, and I'm imagining scenes that would move the plot on. And then when it comes to writing something, I just pick one of the scenes and write them, and that comes out really easily. 1,000 words poured out. I only needed 500 for my work in progress reading, so I'm up on that. So I figured out that if you want a novel of 80,000 words, and I've got about 5,000 or 6,000 now, still quite a long way to go, we need 80 more episodes of the podcast where I'm needing to read before I get there. Because I
think the interest.
Go on.
I was going to say, I think the interesting thing is with a novel or a screenplay or anything like that, you don't have to write it all in order. You don't have to write it in a linear fashion. You can write the scenes as you see them and move them around and fit them in, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't think I'd be able to cope with that. I thought I'd have to sit down and write the whole damn thing. But what I've got is a spreadsheet which divides up into 3 parts called Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And it sort of it's the 3-act structure apparently, and then it also loosely follows the hero's journey format. And then what you do is you put in your you work out how many scenes you're going to need to get to your word count in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then you start thinking of the scenes and you just plug them into the spreadsheet as you write them, and you note how many words they are. And the other thing you do is you fit it into an active and reactive scene format. So after every active scene, you usually have a reactive scene when the characters process what's just happened in some way, and you talk about their feelings. Whereas an active scene is obviously action-packed, hopefully. And so I'm learning a lot about how to write a novel. But I'm reading an extremely funny book called How Not to Write a Novel, which is, it's really good. It's really funny. If there's any writers out there, 200 mistakes to avoid at all costs if you ever want to get published. And it's got a picture of a kitten on the front with a gun pointing at it. And it's basically all the things that agents and publishers look for in order to be able to reject a novel out of hand. And it's literally making me laugh out loud. It's just hilarious. So I'll try and find some funny bits for you next week.
I mean, listening to you makes me realise, I realised I was about to make a pronouncement that actually none of us can ever make. But listening to you makes me think, I never want to write a book. And I was sitting here thinking, when she finishes, I'm going to have to say, I'll never want to write a novel like that. And then I thought, you just can't say that, because every day we end up doing things we never thought we would.
I never thought I'd be able to come up with an idea, let alone...
Well, it's totally mad. You can't say anything like that anymore. You can't make a pronouncement. Oh, no, it just sounds far too much like hard work. Because one day I'll tell you on this show, guess what? I've decided to write a novel.
Yes.
Because that's how barking mad we are. You know, if an idea creeps up, you just got to implement it, haven't you?
Well, I remember the exact moment where I was standing. I mean, I was a member of Write Club for nearly 6 months before I had the idea. But we go along and we do these free write things, and they've got these writing aids like little cards and little dice and all sorts of things, and books, and you just open the book at random and it gives you a topic and you just write it. And being surrounded by people who take their writing seriously, they commit to it, they've got a book on the go, they're writing it, you know, they want to get published. Being surrounded, it's all that thing about creating the right environment, isn't it? And I remember I was standing in the kitchen of the other house where we lived, talking to Sarah randomly. I think I was cooking at the time. An idea just popped into my head for a novel, and I thought, damn, that's quite good. We'll go with that for now, you know, until a better one comes along. But actually, it's evolved. And the other thing that happened was I started to research some of the sort of ideas around the idea, if you like. I got more ideas. So it's a fertile void,
It is. It's creativity, yeah. And actually, when about the same time as I met you, 2002, I was going to a creative writing class at one of those fantastic institutes in London, adult ed institutes. I can't remember whether it was the City Lit or something like that, but with a brilliant teacher. All my English teachers have always been totally brilliant and inspiring. Maybe it's because I love the subject, so I'm kind of like a girly SWAT student. And she gave us all of those exercises and prompts, and we had to read it aloud in the class. And the deadline, I remember saying to her in the first week, you know, what's the most important thing? And she said the deadline. You know, the deadline that you've got to come back next week and read aloud. And some weeks we were great and some weeks we were awful. The rest of the class were terribly supportive. I remember, whatever you wrote. The teacher was the only one that was really honest. Yeah. And if you wrote well, she would say, and if you wrote rubbish, she would say.
Yeah. And yes, the critiquing is fantastic. But the thing is, Judith, it's given me a whole other hobby, because it means I can go off to writers' retreats, I can go to book fairs, you know, I can do all sorts of things that I would never have done unless I was able to say, oh yes, I'm working on my novel.
Yes.
Isn't that horrible, self-satisfied people?
Yeah, and you could say that forever, because actually, you know, sometimes with perfectly legitimately, I'm working on my novel is something that takes people quite a long time.
Yeah, it won't take me quite a long time. I maybe
no, it won't, because we're a bit bish bash bosh. But you know, sometimes novels are a long time in the making, and then the writing, and then the editing, and the editing, and the editing. The client I'm working with, she's been working on the same novel for at least 3 years, probably longer, and I imagine it was in her head and her soul for a long time before that as well.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So that's project updates, and this podcast. I mean, we've sort of stopped looking at the numbers, haven't we? Because we just are enjoying it again, and we know that, you know, it's holding steady on the numbers, and people contact us and talk about it in the group. So.
Yes, although, I mean, obviously the guest idea was inspired. Neither of us have written a manifesto yet, and we don't mind doing the loose women thing. But I'm having thoughts about one of the ideas that you had before, which is stopping at 200, and we're on 174 today. I was wondering whether we should take it to 200 and stop. So I'm still in two minds.
Okay, well, I'm, you know. That's...
Although you've let me off writing a Facebook note, which reduces my duties a bit. I should warn you, there will be a Facebook note today, because obviously for tomorrow, because I wrote it last week, but not for today, for next week.
Yeah, I just think we just need to keep examining what we're doing there, and you know, we could even just not do the notes on the podcast. Yeah, sorry, on the podcast website. If we wanted to, we could just put the podcast on it because that's how it goes. That's how it works, and there's no point.
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, I think we've got over the most recent, most difficult hurdle by having 12 guests. Because literally, I mean, the day came that I thought neither you nor I, together or separately, would ever see, where we'd run out of things to talk about.
I know.
And actually, you can't run a podcast if you've run out of things to talk about. But we're over it slightly. I agree. But I totally agree with you that we should keep it under review and keep trying to refresh it. And that's something that you should do with any business asset, which is what this is.
Yes. So it's not like it would disappear off the face of the planet if we stopped at 200.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't.
Couldn't pop up and do one a month, perhaps. That might.
No, exactly. Or maybe we end up talking about writing or something. I don't know. We're in, our interests are completely different from what they were when we started out. Yours is about hobbies and writing, and I'm coaching low carb people and writing and talking about books as well. So maybe it's about our lives. I don't know. Whatever. But I think you're right. That thing you just said about refreshing it is the key.
Yeah. And if there's a part of the process that feels arduous and takes a lot of time, because sometimes the editing takes time, but sometimes I whack through it in half an hour. But it just depends. Actually, I'll tell you what it depends on. It depends on how good the quality of the line has. Because if the quality of the line's been good, I don't have to listen to every single word again.
Yeah.
Whereas if I have to try and get rid of every single gap, it takes a lot longer.
I don't think it's just the chores that we have to do around it. It's we're 174 episodes into this, and actually it falls into that category of that you've never liked, and ironically it's me that doesn't like it now, actually, which is I've always got to do that thing on Thursday morning.
It structures my week a bit, otherwise I wouldn't know what day it is.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I'm not saying anything really, except I've had the thought maybe we should go to 200. When you said that before, I went, oh my God, that's a year away. But it isn't now, because of course we've got another dozen or so episodes into it.
Well, would you look at that?
What? A peak, big peak. What is it? What's it saying?
Already in March.
God. OMG.
OMG indeed. We haven't looked at this for weeks, lovely listener.
I've got you minimised. I've got you minimised, but even so, I can see it's like the tallest building in the world. It's like the Shard. What's going on?
Well, we've from December 1,500 downloads, January 1,700 downloads, February 1,500 downloads, March already 3,509 downloads.
Oh, which reminds me about my Twitter statistic, which goes on. While you're doing that, I'm going to look it up. I'm up to over 100,000 impressions a month on Twitter. Yeah, I am. I'm going to look that up while you're talking.
Podcast, then?
I don't know. Is that the hockey stick that you've been waiting for since God was a lad?
God was a lad, I don't know. Well, okay, so here we go. So all is normal until March the 18th, where we got 595 downloads in one day.
March the what?
18th. March the 18th.
When that was last Thursday when we were recording, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know. You have to look on.
No, actually, 18th was Sunday.
Okay, so Sunday we had 595 downloads. Monday we had 1,300 downloads.
God, we've never had 1,300 downloads in a day ever.
Tuesday we had 318 downloads, and Wednesday we had 275 downloads. So really,
well, it's that Monday.
Well, it's
1,500 downloads in a day.
Yeah, that was the 19th.
Sometimes don't get that in a month.
I know, Judith. Just as we're talking about
Nicola,
it on the head.
Well, quite. No irony of ironies. I know. If we knew 1,500 downloads a day, I'm in love. Your tweets, Judith Morgan, earned 103,000 impressions in the last 28 days.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So that last bonkers spike thing that is inexplicable still pertains, gentle listener.
We must have been listed on something. That's all I can think. Something.
Well, no, it's only Twitter for me. And as you rightly pointed out, it's not doing me any good. But it is inexplicable, as is our spike on Monday.
Well, if anyone, I'm going to do a Google search now to see if I can find it, but see what's going on. But well, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm as you can hear, I'm totally lost for words. Hang on a minute. What's this? Spotify. Sarah has been doing some stuff, hasn't she? She's I know what she did last weekend. She made it so that our podcast went onto our Facebook page as an audio, so people could listen on Facebook without leaving Facebook.
Okay.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, I wonder whether that's it. When you say, what's this Spotify, what do you say?
I don't know. I mean, I've never seen... We are syndicated to lots of different things, but, including public radio, whatever it's called. No, it's not that then.
Yeah.
Making an offer and selling a product. Well, it's always been one of our most popular shows.
It's ages old, isn't it? When did we do that one?
Oh, a long time ago. 2012. Release date 6th of February, 1950. No, not 1950.
2012? That was our 12th ever show. You're saying that's our most popular?
I know. And second most popular show, Facebook Marketing in Your Business. Next most popular, Would Your Business Survive a Bereavement? That was 2 years ago.
That was in the beginning. What was the second? What number's the second one there?
019.
Oh, and the bereavement one is only about 020, isn't it?
Yeah, but the most somebody shared making an offer to sell.
Somebody's starting again from the beginning.
And sharing them by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite exciting. So that's ending that on a nice high, isn't it? I'm going to go and
it is 1,500 downloads on Monday. Be still my beating heart. Nicola, I will make this pledge to you now. If that's your hockey stick and the trend continues like that, ignore what I just said about opting out at 200 episodes. Okay, if people are actually going to listen and share and stuff, I'm in.
Yeah. And ideally send us challenges to discuss. That would be nice.
Well, I just love that. I mean, I love our 400 regulars, but
yeah, absolutely.
it going bonkers would be great, wouldn't it?
It would. It's funny, isn't it? How external validation? No, actually, because
it's more the opportunities that come from that for us to get clients and to get other radio gigs and all sorts, and to get sponsorship and everything, to make it a whole thing rather than a slightly broken thing.
Yeah. A limping thing.
Yes, a limping thing. That's a song, isn't it? By It's a Limping Thing. Come on, please. Terrible thing to do. ELO. It's not a limping thing. It's a living thing. I was being funny.
Okay, so finally, who or what's impressed you?
Well, Deck of Ant and Deck. Ant, you may know, has been in trouble for the second time. Last summer, we went into rehab for addiction issues, and we thought he was clean to come back to work, but he wasn't. He's fallen off the wagon again, and he's been in a car accident where he was at fault and been breathalyzed and had to go back to rehab. Now, where does that leave half of a double act who has pledged not to appear on stage alone? What does he do, though, when his other half of his double act self-sabotages? So far, in consultation with ITV, and presumably there are contractual issues as well, he's going to go ahead solo.
I think that you can only pledge to be half of a double act if the other half of the double act keeps its end up. Otherwise,
well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't think he could do anything else but go ahead alone, not just contractually, but the man is young.
Yeah.
And he hasn't self-sabotaged, and he's half of one of the most popular acts on telly, and actually he's my favourite half. So I didn't want him to lie down and die over that, and he's going to go on alone, and I think that's the right thing to do. But God, that must have been a hard career decision, don't you think?
Yes, because it's very sad as well, because you're watching someone you care
it's very sad
about very much.
Oh. So he had to make the hardest business decision of his life at a time when his best mate was going through the most difficult circumstances of his life.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you that Sport Relief has started, and last night I watched a couple of the warm-up programmes with celebrities putting themselves through hell for our entertainment and fundraising purposes, and I cried all the way through the one with Zoe Ball cycling across the UK, because she did it for men's mental health, because you might remember that last year her boyfriend hung himself because he had severe depression.
Oh gosh, that's all. And she's had her challenges, hasn't she? She's had
She has had her challenges, and do you know what's difficult? What they have in common, Zoe Ball and Ant, is that whatever your challenges are, if that's what you do for a living, you have to do it in the full glare of the tabloid and TV spotlight, which just makes a difficult thing much, much harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Intense, very intense.
Yeah.
I've got a who's not impressed this week, so I'm going to.
That's a first. That's the first, Nicola. That's a first.
I know. I'm afraid it's my affiliate partner again. not paid me nearly at the end of the month for last month, not responded to messages, not responded to emails. I'm really pissed off. And I'm going to go looking for an affiliate training program now, to ideally a white label one I can white label so I can keep people in my environment rather than sending them off to someone else's environment. Because if someone's not paying their affiliate commission and I'm recommending them to learn how to become an affiliate from that someone, and that someone, just doesn't uphold the terms of how can I?
Well, you're totally right. They are a gazillion miles out of integrity.
Yeah, and I can't recommend them because they don't stick to. It just makes a nonsense the whole thing. It really does. So.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows a good affiliate, how to become an affiliate, good training program, is ideally one I could white label and support people within my environment, that would be great. And I'm going to go looking for one today because I'm fed up with it. Anyway, on a more positive note, I've been reminded that I read Daphne Capsali's book. It's
the one with the motorbike on the front, the one that she's sent me a newsletter about this morning.
Oh. No, the one that's called You Can't Name an Unfinished Thing.
Oh, yes. The one that you said you weren't going to read because it was about bereavement and a bit gloomy.
No, I read the bereavement one, all about death. That was all right. And then I read this one. It's a love story, but a love story with a twist. And I absolutely loved it. It was absolutely brilliant. Thanks very much. And I will keep you up to date with the numbers as they progress day by day.
Okay.
All right, then.
Do.
I will.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.